Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope all are feeling good to be attending this session. I'd like to first thank the Caribbean Corporate Governance Institute for inviting me to speak this morning. Indeed, I would like to congratulate Ms. Kamla Prasad De Silva and her team for staging this inaugural conference on covering such a timely topic, governance in an age of disruption. There is no doubt that COVID-19 and all the other emerging issues have been disruptive to the lives of millions of people globally, including us here in the Caribbean. This has resulted in the rise of unemployment, social unrest, and heavy financial losses for companies, leading to temporary or permanent closure of many businesses. This is unfortunate. In some countries, there has been the need for state intervention in order to bolster companies and also to assist the vulnerable in the society. The bottom line, however, is that where borders are or were closed, most economies will be forced to begin picking up the pieces in order to prevent a much larger economic crisis caused by the disruption. But we are no strangers to adversity, and we will win. I consider this event on leadership and governance very timely. The last few months of human existence have been, to say the least, very trying. But it was the great American author John Maxwell who said, "The pessimists complain about the wind. The optimists expect it to change. The leader adjusts the sails." This segues into my contribution on the topic of leadership and governance, creating a world-class organization. And you will see that I will be talking a bit about the Jamaica Stock Exchange in my delivery. Leadership and governance are intertwined, and absent these elements from the organization, a world-class organization cannot be created. In fact, a world-class organization will be destroyed if leadership and governance were to make their departure. The building of a brand and an excellent reputation takes time and begins with visioning and effective leadership. An effective leader must inspire trust, create a vision, execute strategy, and have the ability to coach the team. In fact, one of my mantras is you need to know the people as a leader in your organization, even more than knowing the work itself, because it is those people together with the leader that will create that winning organization. This the leader must do while effectively building an environment by developing the regulatory and operational framework which creates an organization that is inclusive, responsive, effective, fair, efficient, and transparent. And you might be looking on the backdrop of my backdrop this morning, and you will see that the Jamaica Stock Exchange's tagline is that of providing a fair, efficient, and effective stock market, which recognizes even 50 years ago that it was important, notwithstanding that at that time the term governance was not then front and center in anybody's vocabulary. This governance framework is one secret sauce that has led the stock exchange through its journey from a small, obscure exchange to one that has been a world best performing exchange in the years 2015, 2018, and ranked among the top 5 in 2019. However, an improvement in the economy resulting from greater attention to governance from both the public and private sectors are major contributory factors and are required if most businesses are to achieve the status of excellence that we as Caribbean businesses and indeed worldwide crave. The business of any stock exchange requires that both issuers seeking to raise money and investors can rely on the management of the company to regulate the players in the industry and to help prevent the loss of their investments. And in any business, it is the same. You are looking to preserve your capital and also to be profitable. I'm particularly emphasizing Jamaica as at 1.6 trillion, the market capitalization of the companies listed on the exchange reasonably represent the size of the country's GDP. So you see, it is very important, therefore, to focus on this and to make sure that entities truly try to ensure that their companies are winning and are at the best in class. These companies that are on the exchange, they have been able to raise capital on the market because capital goes where it is comfortable. And the expansion of the equities market from just under 40 companies a decade ago to 92 companies or 127 securities clearly means people must be comfortable. The comfort level can be measured by the number of steps that companies have taken to improve their corporate governance. And even the JSE itself has done that to improve its own structure, because you have to be able to present a structure of governance so that persons can be comfortable with your organization. The perception people have of a company, whether it is good or bad, really exists because they're more than just an element of truth behind it. This was the case with the exchange, where the nature of the structure of organization prior to 2008 did not instill confidence in its governance. The impression was that the Chinese walls, which were necessary to ensure that decisions of the commercial and the regulatory function did not converge, seemed to be non-existent. Good leaders seek to build trust. How do we build trust? Trust is earned when everyone's interests are considered and respected. Between 2005 and now, given our state of improvement, the JSE deliberately set out to chart the course of excellence driven by good governance structure. The exchange, using an introspective approach and committed to be the first in the English-speaking Caribbean to implement sweeping governance reforms, which included demutualization, we did just that. This is a process by which the commercial arm of the exchange was separated from a regulatory arm, which reported to an independent director or an independent body made up of directors on the exchange whose decisions were final and binding on the company. Now that took leadership to allow just one section of your board, the independent section, to be responsible for the decisions of your companies, and those decisions would be binding on everyone. This was a huge disruption, but it was a matter of reform or die. Always, however, bold and innovative leadership is required if a company is to be relevant itself, to reinvent itself for sustainability. Companies are required to develop a strategic leadership plan, which are aligned to the key objectives of the organization. A key component of the JSE's strategic plan was for the exchange to be seen as fair and effective. This should not be a tagline. When you're talking about governance, it really should be living and breathing. It should not be a tagline, but must become a part of our culture and DNA. This meant improving for us our operations, leading to rule changes and the introduction of a corporate governance committee. There was now a shared vision and an understanding that the issues of corporate governance mattered from the smallest to the largest area of the operation. And if we were to be relevant and agile, these changes were necessary. Having a shared vision is critical to the creation of a world-class organization. The development of an ecosystem which encourages best practice at the broker and listed company level, for example, was extremely important. Hence the development of the JSE's Best Practices Award for listed companies and brokers, which was designed to judge the best practices of each company in the area of investor relation, website, corporate governance, and the return on investment based on certain predetermined criteria. The market responded to this, which resulted in companies improving their performance and vying for the awards. Gradual and continuous improvements towards excellence was beginning to be entrenched in both the exchange and the companies it regulates. Our strategy was not, even with the launch of the PSOJ's Corporate Governance Code, to make all the changes towards better governance mandatory, but to seek a buy-in, even as the JSE encouraged adoption. So people need to understand, need to know what will be the impact of governance and to seek to change their organization without it really being mandatory. Allow me to share with you a few examples about how companies can develop into a world-class organization. For the exchange and companies listed thereon, for prospective companies, in order for capital to flow, there must be benchmarking to global standards, and these are governance standards. The technology employed by the JSE and its brokers are best in class to allow transactions to be more transparent and auditable. The requirement for release of timely and accurate information to the market, including changes to board composition, blockout periods of reporting, among other compliance measures means that investors, whether in the Caribbean or globally, can invest or do business with these entities, having a sense of confidence that they are well regulated. This impacts positively on companies' reach and the ability to access markets globally. I must share with you also that the JSE has also just released the Corporate Governance Index, and this is designed to keep listed companies focused on key areas of governance. Agility is a byproduct of good governance and leadership. What does this agility mean in the world of business? It means that an organization is able to adapt quickly to market changes internally and externally. It means also that they are able to respond rapidly and flexibly to consumers' demands. Agile adaptation leads to changes in a productive and cost-effective way without compromising quality and loss of one's competitive advantage. In a globalized world, while we are physically in the Caribbean, we have to compete with the rest of the world. A company located in the Caribbean, which competes effectively with comparative companies in developed countries, is considered a world-class company, but this can only be achieved if the company is nimble and well-regulated. Earlier, we were speaking about the importance of Zoom. And in the business world, Zoom, team meetings, and other similar apps have replaced face-to-face meetings. Whereas short years ago, remote working was not acceptable for employees who were thought to be shirking their work if they did not make an appearance at the office. Today, remote working is embraced. Of course, this new normal has taken away some of the things we took for granted. Video calls are not as spontaneous as regular meetings, and the distance between us robs a certain level of camaraderie. Agile companies, however, will utilize these and other devices, and in fact have moved quickly to adopt digital technology to ensure that service delivery is even more seamless now than before. This takes leadership, which can see the company transform despite the medium. Disruption may just be the new norm, and companies that have embraced technology and best practices will not find effecting changes in their methodology as laborious or slow if they are able to be in the go position, ready, set, go. Again, looking at home, the JSC itself has had to be agile. And I'll share with you that the traditional annual general meetings, for example, that season is on the way for many companies listed on the stock exchange. However, the measures implemented by the government to curb the spread of COVID-19 poses significant challenges for companies that are listed on the exchange to have their meetings, which are required under the Companies Act. AGM provides one of the few opportunities shareholders have to question the board, engage directly with management, and hear the views of other shareholders. We have had to provide guidance and leadership to those who have sought our advice on their plans. We made it clear that the validity of holding of an AGM is a matter of law, and the JSC cannot make an invalid meeting valid by ratification. As advised by our company's office, a virtual or electronic AGM is not permissible under the Jamaican law, and a combination of an on-site meeting combined with a virtual or electronic AGM is not permissible under our law. However, companies wishing to proceed to hold AGM should consider securing a court order under the Section 130 of the Companies Act, which allows the court to direct how a meeting may be held where it is impractical to hold one in a legally prescribed manner. And where I'm going with this is that a world-class company must weigh the consequences of its action to ensure that it is within the parameter of legislation and regulations at all times. Understanding this and the dilemma as presented with the holding of these AGMs, the JSC has since secured an order from the court allowing participating companies to hold their AGM during the time of COVID restriction by hosting fully electronic or hybrid meetings, which must be held using technology such that all members accessing the meeting can be seen and heard, and within the proceeding can consider and be allowed to ask questions in such manner as is reasonable. Real and sustained growth, which are hallmarks of a world-class company, will not be achieved unless and until organizations embrace good governance models which have inbuilt various levels of checks and balances and accountability. A focus on best practices, mentorship where needed, the training of directors, time limits for the refreshing of boards are just a few building blocks which will ensure that companies can function in normal periods and during and post-disruptive periods, which are inevitable. Real players whose businesses are based on good governance are more agile and adaptable to external environmental conditions and can therefore, even with setbacks, rebound quicker and can be more responsive to the demands of their markets. The agility to listen to all shareholders, including all stakeholders, is one quality that separates world-leading companies from others. Now, more than ever, investors are demanding to be heard and are calling for such things as diversity on boards, which includes ethnicity, race, and gender. There is greater activism among shareholders now, and world-class companies must be prepared to accommodate this discussion so that all views can contend despite the number of shares held by an investor. This may be a disruptive change, but is nonetheless required to take businesses to the next level. In our own Caribbean environment, just to share with you, of the 91 companies that are listed on the exchange, while 75 have at least one woman who is a member of the board of directors, only 3 companies have female chairmen. Now, we know what advantage it is when there is diversity. So this is something that companies who are seeking to be best in class need to really look at in order to change that model. For boards to have a reasonable representation mix, the change is slow, even globally, for countries that have not legislated these changes. So far at the exchange, we have incentivized action on this matter through best practices awards, but the change is still slow. Other creative measures are required to encourage changes. And as leaders, we have to look at what are these measures that might be necessary. A good corporate governance infrastructure is a foundation for and fundamental for growth and development of companies and is a nexus for the migration from a good company to a world-class company. I will close with words paraphrased from one of our junior market company CEO, where he said that despite the fact that the major pull for that company to the market was a government's relief on corporate tax for companies listed on the junior market, the most important achievement his company observed and experienced was the improvement in corporate governance, which has allowed the entity to be accountable to all its stakeholders, has changed the culture of its organization to a win and one, and has redounded to the increase in its profitability, I think enough is said. A world-leading company will be forced to inspect to see that its organizational culture remains intact against the background of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has forced remote working with new arrangements. Companies must now ensure that mental health, well-being, and capacity of its employees to deliver are robust, and they must now revisit issues such as compensation. To remain in contention, leaders must ensure that their companies move to innovate, including embracing digital technology, while ensuring that the governance framework and skill sets, both at the level of the board and management, are capable of making the transition. Each company is unique, but the basic tenets of good governance, which drive excellence, have not changed. I recommend that even a world-class organization now with great corporate governance will need to be proactive and agile and revisit the impact of disruption on the business strategy and possibly develop new strategic initiatives and processes, such as the implementation of strong business continuity plan where it was not there already, enterprise risk management frameworks, and a concentration on cybersecurity policies and programs. These are just a few. Strong leadership skills are required, which includes the ability to work with, through, and even for people. And this will ensure that there is a focus in the best and the worst of times, while every time seizing opportunities that are available and abound. Ladies and gentlemen, I recommend these to you as some of the steps that need to be taken to ensure that we in the Caribbean focus on having world-class winning organizations. I hope that you will enjoy the rest of the sessions today. Thank you.